my name is Bella Fenolio, and this is my podcast, Seeking Sanctification. The Lord has just provided so abundantly in my life and the people's lives around me, and I just want to share those stories with you guys. This first episode, I'm going to be going over my testimony and the ways the Lord has really sanctified me and is continuing to, hence the word seeking sanctification. And then after this, I'm going to be interviewing some of my really close friends and talking over their stories and the ways the Lord has really provided for them. Start with telling my story and what I've gone through and how I've really come to know the Lord. When I was growing up, we did not have a super strong Christian household. I would say it was kind of more of a lukewarm faith growing up. We would go to church on holidays, but I never was really introduced at a young age to what it really meant to live for Jesus and live your life for Him. At the age of 11, I got really sick. At this point, I was unable to walk. I was wheelchair bound, and it was a lot of turmoil trying to figure out what was going on, and then finding out what I had was lifelong, and there was really not much that they could do about it. I was diagnosed with POTS at 11. We went through lots of hardship trying to figure out ways to help me. There wasn't a ton of ways, and really nothing worked at that point of my life. Shortly after that, I started going to a Christian private school. It was 3 days a week, and it was easier to accommodate my health struggles at the time. And I would say that was the first intervention of me really understanding what it meant to really live for Christ. I would say at this point I still wasn't doing it, but I was seeing people do it, and I was understanding what it really means and how important having a real and personal relationship with Jesus is. After this point, there was a lot of ups and downs in my faith, and there was a lot of ups and downs in my health as well. It was kind of a roller coaster ride the next 10 years of my life. Better sometimes, sicker at sometimes, but I did slowly start to get better until my senior year of high school. When I turned 18, I had a kidney stone that got stuck, and I went into sepsis. This night was really rough. I came very close to dying that night, and through the grace of God, I am still here. But with any kind of severe immune response, sepsis is so hard on anybody's body. Obviously, with a person with a chronic illness, it made it a lot worse. So I kind of went back to square one. So all of the progress I had spent the last 10 years working on went back to square one at the age of 18. This was, I already mentioned, my senior year of high school. At this point, again, just seeking for answers, and there really was none. They had done all of the medications there was to try. I was drinking gallons of water a day. I was getting IV fluids every week. I was doing absolutely everything we could do to get better, but absolutely nothing was working. Around this time is also when I started actually taking my faith really seriously. I found a really strong Christian community and started really learning what it meant to live for Jesus and to know Jesus and to love Jesus intimately. And this was a huge turning point in my life. Around this time, we also found out that I had several vascular conditions. So several of my veins and my major arteries were being compressed. So if you take a water hose and you bend it, no water flows through. That's what was happening to several of my veins and my arteries. And even just finding out these diagnoses was truly from the grace of God, because they are 0.01% of the population has them. So most doctors don't even know what they are. I would say probably 90% of doctors don't even know what they are. So I just happened to be in the right place at the right time with the right doctor to find out I had these conditions. And still at this time, there was a lot of uncertainty whether fixing these conditions would fix all the problems I've had my whole life. So I really took a leap of faith at this point and really leaned on Jesus, and I decided to go ahead with these really, really major surgeries in the hopes of just living a normal life. Because at this point, I was just miserable. Every hour of the day was just really, really miserable. So I underwent several major surgeries to fix those conditions. So I'll start and kind of tell that story. If you've been following me, you've been following my journey, you've probably seen snippets of what's been going on the past year, but it's probably not all conclusive, and you're probably not able to understand what actually happened to me. So I did want to take some time to actually explain that to the people that have been following me. I first underwent an auto kidney transplant back in March of 2024. So what that means is they took my kidney out and they moved it to the other side of my body. And through that process, I had mentioned before, I had just entered into a really amazing church community, and I really got to see what it's like to have godly friends and like how deeply they show up for you. I had friends praying over me during my 8-hour surgery. I had friends coming in the hospital laying hands on me. I never felt so loved by the people around me. Also, outside of my Christian community, like the Lord just supplied so many amazing people to really hold me up and pray for me during this time. That was back in March, and that was done in New York. 2 weeks later, fly home from New York, and this experience was, I would say, the closest I ever felt like God intervening in my life, but also like the most like evil experience I've ever experienced. So I fly home from New York, and I start throwing up blood. And so I end up in the hospital. I had an artery rupture in my stomach, and I was internally bleeding. So throughout this whole process, at the time, I really felt like, honestly, very abandoned by God and confused of what was happening. Later, now with the hindsight that I have of how everything planned out, and obviously I'm still here, the Lord really protected me and directed every step of that night in just such a miraculous way. So during that night, I went to a hospital near my house. We're about 30 minutes outside of like a big metropolitan city, but at the time they did not think I could survive the drive there because I was like in very critical condition. So they transferred me to a hospital over here, and they automatically are like, this is too much, we're not touching you. So they gave me blood, but they were not going to do anything else. And so they start calling all of the big hospitals in the area. And we have lots of really big, really well-equipped hospitals for what was going on. But everybody said no. They were calling, no, we're not going to take her. They were thinking my kidney surgeon messed up. They were thinking I was going to die, and honestly, did not want to get their hands in this situation that they felt like was a lost cause. And so I spent 10 hours actively, severely, I was losing lots of blood at this point. Thankfully, I didn't lose my life over this situation, but I definitely came very close to it. After about 10 hours, I get transferred to another hospital by the grace of God, and they end up being able to save my life. And during that whole process, I was so confused about why that needed to be such a long, painful process for me, why it couldn't have just been the first hospital said yes. I was just very confused, and I felt very hurt at the time, why am I going through all of this? We find out later on that the hospital I end up going to, there was one specific doctor there who was this world-renowned gastric surgeon that people come from all over the world to see. The bleed was in my stomach, by the way. And they told me, they were like, if it were not for this one man being there, and at this point there had been a shift change, so there's completely different doctors because it's the morning. But they were like, if this one man was not there that time, you wouldn't be here. They were like, if they would have opened you up at the first hospital, you wouldn't be here. If we would have opened you up and we didn't have this man, this is like a trauma one, very well-equipped hospital. But they were like, if we did not have this one doctor, we would have killed you. If any other hospital were to open you up, they would have killed you. And so it was just so obvious to me that the Lord had to direct the steps in the way that they happened. And if it were up to me and it were up to my timing, I would have died. I did not want to have to wait that time, but I had to in order for my life to be saved. And so that was just such a really hard process, but the Lord really showed up in just so many ways throughout that, of just random people that were at the hospital that I knew, and the president of the hospital coming to meet me and giving me his card and his phone number, and really crazy experience. Unfortunately, that was not the end of my hardships. After this, when you fix one of the compressions, so we fixed the kidney one, other ones get worse, and I didn't know I had two in my stomach. And so after the bleed, I was completely unable to eat at this point. So I had another set of 5 pretty major surgeries in June and July of 2024. So again, it's pretty soon. It's all of this was very quick. That was also a really, really hard process, not easy surgeries whatsoever. Any surgery on your stomach is really intense. These were on my intestines, and very, very hard process. But obviously I recovered. And with the stomach conditions, one of the ones I had kills 1 in 3 people. So the odds were just so not in my favor over this summer. Like, there were so many experiences where I really shouldn't be here, like by, the medical side of things, but the Lord just saved my life. And so with these stomach conditions, the surgeries that I had done are actually often unsuccessful. There's a lot of people that get these done and still cannot eat. So I was so thankful. I went from not being able to eat at all for probably 6 months to being able to now I can eat completely normally with no problems at all. And that is just such an amazing thing that most people are not lucky enough to see. But I have literally no issues eating food now, and it was just such an amazing thing to just see how the Lord provided in that way. And through all of that, not only has that strengthened like my faith, it's just strengthened who I am as a person. I have this joy for life that I didn't have going into this. I just see life in such a different lens, and it's just so much more colorful now, because I know what it's like to really suffer, and I know what hardship really is like. But the Lord has really used that for my refinement. And in the Bible, it doesn't promise us we won't have hardships in life, but it does promise us that He will work things for the good of those who believe in Him, like it says in Romans 8:28. And that's truly what the Lord has done for me. He's worked all of those really horrible experiences for my good and has transformed me as a person. All of those experiences were extremely sanctifying, and I just have been given the most amazing people in my life to walk alongside. So I'm just so excited to get to really delve deeper with you guys about my journey and my faith and how I'm growing, and also my amazing friends that are just so amazing. I cannot wait for you guys to meet them, and I'm going to sit down with them and get to really pick their brains and the things they've been through. But I just am so thankful. And also with the stuff I've been dealing with most of my life, it is, I would say, like 90% better, like almost completely gone. I'm not 100% healed, but I'm not like, it's not a daily struggle. It's not affecting my everyday life. I'm no longer miserable every second of the day. And so also with that, like the chances of those things fixing this, like weren't that amazing. But they did, for the most part, fix my problems. Again, I'm not 100% better, but I am so much better than I walked into this. So I'm just so thankful for the ways the Lord has saved my life and really sanctified me, and I just cannot wait to walk alongside this podcast with you guys. If you guys are interested in seeing more of me and my friends and their stories and how the Lord is working in my amazing community, go ahead and subscribe. I'm so excited, and thank you guys so much for tuning in.